In this video, I'm going to build this to answer a question that we've all been asked. Why do you like that silly little block game so much? The response is different for everyone, but I want to prove my answer. And I'll push the game and myself as hard as I can to do it. Sounds like a really productive use of my time, right? Right? Goodbye social life, goodbye outdoor recreational activities, I'll see you in a month. I'm duty bound to answer this question that no one asked. It is my calling.
You're gonna need to go outside, aren't you?
Whether you love the game or hate it, you can't deny this fact. Minecraft is not just a video game. Beneath the layers of blocks and seemingly primitive graphics is an insanely powerful gem. There's a reason why it's the best-selling game of all time. The simple answer? It's infinite. After playing on and off for years, I spent the last 12 months exploring an entirely different side of Minecraft. I removed the limitations of physically having to collect the blocks, found modifications to the game to make placing them easier, and I built. A lot. And I mean a lot. Literally 12 hours a day building for a year. Look, I never said it was healthy. Fine.
Well, that sucked. Never doing that again. What a waste of time.
As I built, I started to find more and more answers to the question, why? It's a really broad question, but I think about it like this, and buckle up, this is a metaphor. Imagine that there's a house. Everything inside that house represents an answer to the question, why? And none of them are wrong, but this house has a ton of different windows. At the end of the day, there's only so far you can stretch. There's a limit to what you can see. I stayed at this one for about 10 years, and I loved it. Most people do. But I got curious, so I went and checked another one on the other side of the house. And I'm so glad I did. There was so much more to see. The stuff I had been seeing before wasn't incorrect at all, but it wasn't the full picture. I checked another and another. The more I looked, the more windows I found, and the more that there was to see. I kept exploring until one fundamental truth dawned on me. Minecraft is not just a game. It's an editor. An engine. With this silly little block game, you can create the most immersive worlds, foster avid communities, and tell epic stories. The thing is quite literally a dream machine. And yeah, maybe some of you are on board with this, but it's a bold claim, so let's prove it. When I was in college, I wrote a book. It's an unedited mess, and I wouldn't want anyone to read it as it is now, but my favorite part about it was the world that I'd created. I made dozens of different nations, each with their own race, culture, economies, yada yada yada, even made a magic system based on light physics. And to answer your question, yes, I am running for Nerd Council President in November. Make sure you vote. I'm Shovel and I approve this message. Even after hundreds of hours of planning, writing, and sketching, there was still something missing. I had written an entire book, and I still couldn't fully see my vision of this world. It just wasn't enough. But now it can be. This is Z. I'm guessing you're wondering how he got here, why is he falling, is he old since he has white hair, yada yada yada. Well, long story short, Z is part of the organization of powerful beings that have been ostracized from society due to complex power dynamic of less powerful but more plentiful magic users. They live in a world that is divided itself into a caste system based on economic wealth and magic power. The magic system is based on that theory of color, which in the base color white light is called sway and can be into infinite combinations and variations of magic, but are generally subdivided in categories like the color wheel. Okay, maybe I went too quick. This is Etheria. It's a huge continent that's home to dozens of nations, races, and mystical creatures. The one thing that connects them all is magic. Most people can use it, but some are just naturally better at it, and some are even better than them. These guys didn't like that those guys were better at magic, but there's a lot more of these guys than there are of those guys. And what happens when there are two groups of people and one has an inferiority complex but exponentially higher numbers and resources? They effectively communicate their feelings and learn to resolve their differences peacefully. Hooray! Nah, I'm just kidding. They hunted them. ones who escaped had to go all the way up here, the northern deserts. And this is where we start our story. Stop. I see what you're doing. Yes, you. Scroll up from that comment section. You don't even have to ask. The area for this episode's build is going to be available for download on my Patreon. I'm going to put them up every month as individual areas so you guys can explore as we go. Once the full map is completed, I'll have all these areas compiled, but it's going to be like a 40k by 30k map, so it's going to be a pretty hefty file. I'd like to turn it into some sort of RPG adventure map. Not exactly sure I'm going to do it yet, but I'll figure that out along the way. Probably. The only reason that the Omegas were able to settle here in the deserts is because it was so remote and dangerous. Their magic ability made them the only ones who were able to survive here. The sands were barren and coarse. The cliffs are steep, treacherous. And that's not to mention the pests. Once they trekked as far as they possibly could, they started laying down the foundation. Their gifts allowed them to turn the powdery sand into fertile soil and raise crops in an instant. Soon enough, they were able to secure food, water, and shelter. But that didn't mean that they were safe. Nature has a funny way of keeping its natural balance, and the Omegas were disrupting that. By day, sand beasts patrolled the skies. By night, gigantic armored monsters swept the sands. It was a constant cycle to try and survive and build a fortress for the ever-increasing number of Omegas that were joining the group after hearing rumor of this sanctuary. Eventually, the Omegas started to learn how to navigate and settle in the deserts. Once they did, they set the foundation for the place that would become the Omega metropolis, the Ark. For this city, there's a few things that we're going to need to put in. Right now, I'm just doing the shaping. We'll get to the more in-depth exploration later when we do the interior. This area is roughly based on ancient Sparta, so it's going to be extremely military focused. If you know anything about Sparta, you'd know that they weren't all exactly equal. We're not going to do that here. Instead of having an internal caste system, I want all of these people to work together. They've got enough problems as it is. Okay, the main exterior has been completed, and I'm super happy with it. Right now, we're kind of at the tipping point. This definitely surpasses anything that I've done in other mediums like writing and sketching, but something like this always happened. Alright, this looks great. I love it. Now what? With Minecraft, we can go further. Let's make it come to life. Over the course of a few years, hundreds of Omegas flocked to the Ark in waves. To house their growing numbers, they fashioned large barracks with space to support each of their new citizens. They tried to make the common spaces as comfortable as possible, with comforts like a lounge, gym, and library. And since this is Minecraft and it doesn't need to make sense, I think I'm going to give them a pool table. Why not? Rather than constantly spending their energy to produce crops, they created an oasis that could self-sustain and produce. Most Omegas are orphaned, cast out from their home from fear of being hunted. As a result, many Omegas spend their childhoods on the street. For most of them, the only way to survive is to take what they can. Most bystanders don't look too kindly on stray Omegas. Normally, when one is found, they're turned in to the authorities, the Alphas. If they're found by Omega operatives called Seekers, they're brought back to the Ark to be raised by Keepers, who act as their adoptive guardians. Keepers are some of the most trusted and seasoned Omegas that also act as initial trainers, a sort of primary school before they start their formal military training. Every person who came to the Ark had a price to pay. Currency didn't mean much, but labor did. In return for being supported by the other Omegas, everyone had to help with community projects and a military service term. There were local training areas for all sorts of combat, magical and non-magical. Once training was completed, the Omegas were assigned to these three military factions: Scrounger, Seeker, Soldier. No one's immortal, not even Omegas. Disease and the climate affect people differently, and being an Omega is not limited by race. A lab was created where different potions and medicines were brewed to ease the burden of the climate, as well as antidotes to poisons and other powerful elixirs. As the numbers kept growing, the need for more exotic items became more and more apparent. This person is from this place, so they need this thing to survive. And this person is from this place, so they need this thing to survive. Operatives called scroungers would be sent out to get these essential items for the community, but they were also able to pick up some other things along the way. These overflow items became the incoming stock for the public market, where the community could trade for less essential goods. This is what I love about exploring an idea in person. It gives you a whole new perspective. I always knew that I wanted this place to have magic power technology, but I really didn't know how or why. While building this, I finally came up with a solution. There were good times and there were bad times, but the need for readily available energy was constant. Maybe a dragon mistakenly crashes into a tower, or there's a plague that wipes out that year's harvest. They didn't want to get caught in a bad situation with no ability to fix it. So, they constructed these orbs. Think of them as magic batteries. In times of plenty, they can be charged by the Omegas and drawn upon at a later time. Once they were able to store and channel their power, they started innovating. Necessity is the catalyst to innovation, and the Omegas needed to ensure that they could conserve their energy, used by magic, as much as possible. Instead of conjuring ways to fly through the sky, they imbued items with magic-fueled engines to transport them safely. Magic is stronger when channeled, so they forged weapons that could act as conductors. They did all of their smithing work here in the forge. The strongest founding members became the Ark's elders and acted as the governing body. Once they couldn't lead any longer, their pupils replaced them, and then their pupils replaced them. The numbers grew as the Omegas flocked to the refuge, and so did the Ark. Soon enough, this small outpost started to turn into a bustling metropolis. After over 200 years since the Omegas first arrived, the Ark still stands. I first drew this map over 7 years ago. I first thought of this place that we built today 7 years ago. And in 7 years, I've never been as satisfied with the vision as I am right now. I never knew exactly how this area would look, but I knew how it should look. Sure, I had sketches, plans, characters, but words and doodles can only take you so far. Being able to create a fully immersive version of your vision is something else entirely. After writing an entire book, there was always some part that was missing, but it doesn't feel like anything's missing anymore. That's what sets Minecraft apart from the rest. Its ability to clarify the abstract. For me, at least. Trying to explain why you love Minecraft is difficult, because so much of the game's beauty comes not from what it is, but more so what it is not. You can have the craziest idea and turn it into something so tangible with this game. Ultimate freedom. You can create art, worlds, people to live within it. Have characters play out an elaborate plot of your own design. You can do anything. All it takes is some knowledge, time, and overall, imagination. And it's all made possible by some silly, little, mistakenly simplified, incredibly underestimated block game.